I apologize for the delay. We just had to check some notes and see who was eligible to sit up here again tonight, okay, for that particular application. At this time, I'll call a meeting of September 21st of the 2015 of the Roselle Park Municipal Land Use Board. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Wilkerson, Councilman Petrosky,
Here.
Lauren Harms,
Here.
Albert Ritchie,
Here.
John Stevens, Glenn Costello,
Here.
John Kennedy,
Here.
Jay Rivera,
Here.
Paul Belmonte,
Here.
Jerry Vitale,
Here.
Owen Ungerman,
Here.
Mohammed Jalla,
Here.
Lisa Malave.
Okay, we have a quorum. At this time, I would just like to introduce, since we're going over to the board, introduce Mr. Greg Delano, who has just been appointed by Mayor and Council to alternate 4 to replace Ruben Job, is that what it is? Okay, yeah, for the remainder of the year on that. So, welcome, Greg. And before you leave tonight, will you just sign the oath then?
Absolutely.
Okay. What else? What's that? Yeah, we'll still be fine. Okay. Before we do that, I'll have everybody rise for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll have Mr. Delano sworn in.
I state your name.
Greg Delano, I, Greg Delano,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and this state
and this state,
in the authority of the people.
and the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office
all the duties of the office
of alternate 4
of alternate 4
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
In case of a fire, please move in a calm and orderly manner to the nearest exit for John Point. Thank you. Next, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes of August 17th.
Make a motion to approve minutes?
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, I'll accept a motion to open the public portion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, the public portion is open. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward to state your name and address.
Keith Diamond, 12 Woodside Avenue, Roselle Park. Just want to come up in support of it, something that will stabilize taxes, because instead of collecting like some of it, or like when they go for a tax appeal and all that, you're getting much more of a tax base that's going to get spread out and stabilize the incoming money. And so just to hopefully you approve it, and not because some people feel one particular tenant doesn't fit their lifestyle or town's lifestyle, like all of my particular tenant that's there. So I hope look past that and approve it.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll accept the motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, we have to memorialize two resolutions. The first one would be the McDonald's Corporation extension. If you remember, we extended until October 2016. So if I could have a motion to memorialize resolution 2015-009.
I make a motion to memorialize. I'll second.
Okay. Tay and Al?
No.
Okay. Right? Right? Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Petrosky,
Yes.
Lauren Harms.
Yes?
Al Litchi,
Yes.
John Stevens, no, I'm sorry, Len Costello,
Yes.
John Kennedy,
Yes.
Jay Urbana,
Yes.
Bobby Monte,
Excuse me, okay. These are the only three that you can, yes. That's right.
we have Jay Petrosky, Lauren Harms, Al Litchi, John Kennedy, and Jay Urbana.
Okay. That's the only ones, that's the only ones that voted last night, don't vote this time. Okay. Motion passes. Our second one is resolution number 2015-010, and that is the 303 Walnut Street. That was the pool that we approved. Have a motion to accept, or to memorialize resolution 2015-010.
Make a motion to accept. Second.
Everybody got it? We got here? Okay. And then we can see people.
Okay. Councilman Petrosky,
Yes.
Lauren Harms.
Yes?
Al Litchi.
Yes.
John Kennedy.
Yes.
Jay Urbana.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we're going to continue the application for the Sullivan Properties from the June 15th, June 2015. So at this time, I have to ask our councilors to stay in seats, and also Mr. Holmgren, please come up and take Mr. Costello's place. The reason why we're doing this is that one of the board members wasn't here, Mr. Holmgren was, so we're just going back to the same people that we possibly could get here tonight to listen to the continuation.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we're going to continue the application preliminarily on the board's agenda on June 15, 2015 at 10 West Westfield Avenue, commonly referred to as the Sullivan properties. Mr. Chairman, I think for purposes of the record, we just already stated it, but since we are now on the record with regard to this particular hearing, the board is presently comprised of 8 members, 7 citizen members, Mr. Petrosky, who is a member of at class 3 member. The vote on this application, should the board go to a vote this evening, would be by way of a simple majority. It is a planning matter. It is not a zoning matter. There are no use variances or anything that would require a supermajority. So with the fact that there are 8 members, if a motion to pass this resolution or adopt the resolution with regard to this would require 5 affirmative votes, although we don't need the supermajority, but 4 and 4, if there are 4 votes for, 4 votes against, obviously it's not a majority, so we would not, a motion would not carry on only 4 affirmative votes of a 9 or an 8 member body. Mr. Angel, do you have anything to add with regard to that procedural matter?
Is there a 9th member that would normally be sitting?
The 9th member that would be sitting would be the mayor. That would be the only member that of Class 1. Alternates cannot sit and vote for that class. They can only vote for their class, which would be the Class 4 membership.
If there was a 4-4 vote, would we be able to provide a transcript of the proceedings to the mayor so that he can draw the deciding vote?
You would have to listen to all hearing.
If that would be the case, if it did go to the vote and it was 4-4, so that the motion does not carry, the mayor wants to make himself available for purposes of reviewing of a transcript, whether a written transcript or listening to a tape, that would qualify him to vote on the entire application.
Can I have a moment to confer with my client?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be appropriate to board members a 5-minute recess while we're discussing this issue.
Is that the motion to go on 5-minute recess?
Well, maybe not. It comes out. Okay, all right.
That was good enough. I got that.
That's fine, Counselor. If we have the opportunity, if there should be a 4-4 vote, if we have the opportunity to present transcripts to the mayor, we have no problem proceeding.
I do want to indicate, Mr. Andrell, that I cannot guarantee that the mayor would want to participate in the proceeding. He certainly has been made aware and available of all of the proceedings and could have appeared himself.
We understand that, President.
Right, he would have to review both transcripts because he was not present at the first hearing on it.
We understand that.
At this time, is there anything else that you want to go over before I go over our meeting with Mr. Garcia?
No, in fact, that was going to be my first order of business, was to call Mr. Garcia and discuss the meeting between the members of the select committee and Mr. Garcia, and then go from there. We have just some additional testimony of a brief nature from the planner with regard to the sign variances. Other than that, I don't plan on calling any additional witnesses.
Okay. You want to just, Mr. Garcia wanted to speak, or should I speak on how we...
Sure.
If Mr. Garcia is going to be speaking, we're going to have to swear him in. So why don't we just swear him in now? Mr. Garcia, please raise your right hand. You swear that any testimony shall be given before the board this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and give us your business address for the record.
Salvador Garcia, the Garcia, 307 Westfield Avenue, Elizabeth, New Jersey.
The 3-member board met with Mr. Garcia on August 30th, I guess it was, or 31st, it was it. And I thank Mr. Garcia for meeting with us. I think it was a very well meeting. we come up with a good resolution for the variances that he was asking for. I'll just go over them that we had, and Mr. Garcia, you can either state that that's what we discussed or we didn't discuss that. The first was on the signs.
Mr. Norris, before you do that, could you please identify all the members that were present as part of that subcommittee for the record?
Yes, it was Mr. Alnici and Mr. J. Rubino. Okay, the three of us met. The first, we talked about the landscaping, and we kind of went over some things that I brought some pictures to show what we kind of were thinking of doing. But anyhow, and Mr. Garcia was in all favor of doing the landscaping in there, what we discussed. Okay. I didn't ask Mr. Garcia at that time to make up a new drawing for it, since this was a preliminary, that when the finals came through, that this would incorporate, the landscaping would incorporate that. I didn't want to have them go through a lot of extra for it, since we have a commitment from Mr. Garcia on landscaping. The second, we talked about the signage. And a few things we asked Mr. Garcia to consider, and the one was the sign that would be at the two entrances. We asked him to look at the Garwood Plaza sign, and at that time we did not know the height of it, and Mr. Garcia was going to find out the height of it. I'm not sure if he did. But the committee was willing to accept whatever that height was, okay? Whatever that height was, that we would accept that height for it. And the style was a little different. Mr. Garcia showed us a kind of rendition of what it was. It was a little rounded at the top, more the square of it, and we kind of agreed that would be fine for it. And again, whatever that height is, we didn't have a problem. So if it came out to be 22 feet, 25 feet, 29 feet, whatever it was, because in the variance he was asking for a 30 foot. The other thing, that was one of the signs, okay, because there was two variances for the signs. The other sign was for the AutoZone store itself. We had a pretty good discussion on it that we asked Mr. Garcia to go back and ask AutoZone to, and members that were there, please help me, were they channel lettering? That it was channel lettering, it wasn't?
Pardon? I think I have it written in the notes. Pardon my handwriting.
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
It was to have a individual channel letter
Check,
rather than
yes,
one big.
one big letter, it was
Yeah,
individual. And that they would put it on the orange on the top of it. And we didn't have a problem with the being on either side of it. And I'll use that picture down there, if you don't mind, Mr. Garcia, behind you there. That we asked them to put it on the orange part of it, on that side and the other side too. And Mr. Garcia, from my understanding, unless he tells me different tonight, that was acceptable. The other thing, yes, the other thing that we asked Mr. Garcia to go back to AutoZone was to remove I want to call it the triangle in the front of it, the overhang canopy. Yeah, we asked them to get, to remove that, and the column there just didn't seem to. We asked them to do it. Now I'm understanding that is going to happen.
It was agreed that it was agreed.
Okay. The other part of that was instead of being, I think, the red around the windows and doors and that type of thing, we asked them to have it in a bronze or a brown. I'm not sure what color we actually come up with. We just didn't want the red on it. That we asked to put up a brown or a bronze look to it. And I think Mr. Garcia went back to them and it was accepted also.
Yes, we agreed with a warmer color rather than
warmer color. Okay,
bright red.
that's a better way to put it. And, again, thank you, Mr. Garcia. I don't need that anymore. I don't need you to hold it. Thank you. So there were the things that we went to, and again, I didn't ask Mr. Garcia to have a drawing made out tonight. for these particular things, since we're in agreement with them, and it's on record as of tonight.
I do have a color elevation that was provided by AutoZone, which is a store that doesn't have the, what you call triangle overhang.
Right.
It does not have the beige nor the stone that we decided, that we agreed upon, and it still has the windows in red, but you can kind of get an idea of what it looks like if we want to add it as an additional exhibit.
Okay, let's see where it was. Last exhibit number that I have in my notes is A5, which is consistent with what we have in front of us.
Yeah.
It's the A6.
Just mark it A6.
Mr. Garcia, I apologize, but when you said the last part of it, that AutoZone is, they have another building that would show, it was changing the color of it? Than what we proposed? Oh,
The color on the building that I've given you with the exhibit is actually the gray and orange of the other buildings that we discussed. The building we're proposing is going to be the beige AutoZone with the culture stone on the front.
okay. Okay, so that has
The exhibit is gray.
I see, okay.
Gray with the orange, but that won't be the colors of this.
Okay.
That accurately depicts the elimination of the triangle and where the sign placement would be.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just give the board members that were there, is there anything else that we discussed that particular night other than that's what we were there to do? And the landscape, right. Okay, so and that was all covered. Again, I thank Mr. Garcia for his meeting with us. Like I said, it was a very well meeting. We had a good discussion on what we needed to do in there. And I thank him for getting these approvals from AutoZone, especially for that. Without further, this is what I have from our meeting. So now I would put it up to you, or if you wanted to add some more to it.
Mr. Garcia, you heard the comments of the chairman and the synopsis he gave of your meeting. Is that an accurate reflection of what was discussed and what was agreed upon at that meeting?
Yes.
And did you in fact have an opportunity to analyze the height of the Garland Plaza sign?
Yes.
And what was the height of that sign?
Ours is the sign on our plan and the sign in the plaza are around the same height.
Approximately 30 feet. Nothing further. If the board would indulge me, I'd like to just call the planner back up and just complete his testimony with regard to the sign variances, because obviously, despite what occurred at the select committee meeting, we still have to meet our burden, our legal burden with regard to planning testimony concerning the sign variances. I can assure you this testimony will be brief.
Raise your right hand. Swear whatever testimony you will give before the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and give us your business address for the record.
Justin Auciello, A-U-C-I-E-L-L-O. I-E-L-L-O, 2 L's and an O. 125 Half Mile Road, Redneck, New Jersey, 07701.
May I proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Mr. Roselle, you provided testimony the last time this matter was heard with regard to the planning aspects of this case. I believe the only testimony that you didn't have the opportunity to provide was with regard to the variances concerning the signage.
That's right.
Would you provide us with your testimony in that regard, and limit it only to the sign? You don't need to recap what you've already done.
Sure, absolutely. So we do require 2 variances for the sign package. The first variance is for the primary size sign size. Lot 102, Building A, proposed primary sign is 152 square feet, whereas 131.8 square feet is permitted. The proposed secondary sign area is 102 square feet, whereas 60 square feet is permitted. Second variance is for the pole sign height and area. Such sign shall not have a greater area than 30 square feet per face, whereas 160 square feet per face is proposed for 2 signs, and the total permitted height of the sign, including the post, shall not exceed 20 feet, whereas 30 feet for each sign is proposed. As you're aware, this property is a prominent property on Westfield Avenue. It's a large property. It's currently sitting undeveloped. We think obviously this is a great application for this property. The signage is really part and parcel to that. The reasoning for the sign, size and height, and is essentially for 3 main reasons. Number one, for visibility purposes. As you're aware, there are a number of signs on Westfield Avenue in the area. I guess notably STS, McDonald's, and Sunrise Diner. We believe that the property is of a sufficient size that necessitates the height of the sign. It serves as a beacon for anyone coming down Westfield Avenue. It sends a signal, obviously, that this property is upcoming. The overall area is also necessary, and again, this is due to the size of the property and the number of uses that we do, or the tenants that could likely locate on this property as well. So when you look at the balancing test, as you know, for variances, you need to put on the record the balancing test, whether the benefits of granting these variances will outweigh the detriment. Certainly, it will. I mean, we advance multiple purposes of the MLUB. The signs are going to be attractive. The signs will allow for proper circulation on the property and into and off the property. Certainly there will not be a substantial detriment to the public good. Again, the signs are generally overall consistent with the character of Westfield Avenue that does contain a number of signs. Certainly will not impair the intent of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. As you're aware, the use is permitted, and the signs, in summary, the signs simply are not there for economic purposes. The signs are there for safety reasons and also to blend in with the overall nature of Westfield Avenue, which is a commercial district. That concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Seal.
Thank you.
I have no further professional witnesses to testify, Mr. Chair.
Do any board members have any questions of the planner at this time?
The only thing, on the signage, I know you went through your spiel and all that stuff, and I appreciate that, which I think the committee has already said that due to the fact that Auto Land said that they would put the signs on,
Auto Land signs are a lot better.
I'm sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, right. That the signs would be changing to the channel numbers and all that other stuff. We did agree to, if the Garwood sign or the Garwood Plaza sign was 30 foot. My question to the attorney would be, is that would we give the variances now without having a detail of it, or is it just what we're doing right now is what we're doing right now, and that's how it would be, and we would agree on it?
This evening's proceeding, and we'll go back, and I do want to go through some of my notes with the board, so the board is aware of things that it should be considering during the course of its deliberations. The board originally was presented an application for preliminary, final, and subdivision approval. During the course of the first hearing, and Mr. Andrell, you were here, so please feel free to interrupt me if I'm misstating something that you may have agreed to, or with regard to the modifications. But during the course of the hearing, the subdivision was withdrawn.
Correct.
And the applicant indicated that they were only seeking preliminary site plan approval with regard to this application. Again, this is a review of my notes. I try to take copious notes, but they don't cover everything, because it's almost impossible. With regard to your question, Mr. Chairman, Specifically, if the board were to grant the preliminary site plan approval, that would indicate that the variances that were sought as part of the preliminary are in fact being granted. That does not mean that the detail, that the drawings that you would be expecting in the future relative to the final application wouldn't still need to be submitted. So, for example, if it is this board's desire to see more of a rounded top of that 30-foot sign as opposed to a square, we would expect that that would be something that would be seen, and of course that was part of the discussions that you, along with the subcommittee, had directly with Mr. Garcia. So there would be another opportunity for this board to review the final site plan if the board approves the preliminary site plan. The preliminary site plan is mostly used for the benefit of the applicant, because the applicant here is trying to get the approval for his project. Once you give a preliminary approval, he now has a much better idea relative to how much space he has in any particular building, and be able to market it in a different way. And again, I don't mean to speak for Mr. Garcia when I say this, or Mr. Andrew, but he would be able to market it a little bit different way, knowing that he has preliminary approval on uses, and won't have to necessarily come back and convince the board that I want the 5 buildings that are being proposed. I think it's 3 buildings that are being proposed, as opposed to any other type of situation. So, so the answer is yes, the variances would be part of the approval process should the board approve it.
And the one variance that you were looking for was on landscaping. Remember what that was? I thought it was a 10%. We're going.
I think it's a question of the amount of landscaping, but I also understood that through the final site plan, we would work with the engineer and come up with something that was
right. And my recollection of that meeting was that there was going to be a lot more than what was actually proposed in here. So I'm not sure how we would handle that variance.
That would just be an indication that, and as part of the resolution, would indicate that a landscape plan satisfactory to this board would need to be submitted, whether it required additional variances or no variances, but that would be required as part of the final the final site plan approval. A lot of words. But that a final landscape plan would have to be agreed upon with that part of the application.
If there's nothing else from the board or from Mr. Garcia and his attorney, yes, Mr. Whitehead.
I have a question. Are you saying that we're going to see a drawing of what the signage is going to look like in comparison to, you know, the whole area? Because by just giving me,
no,
you know, by just giving me numbers,
it would be
300 square feet versus 40 square feet. I can't
a final, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
we'll see
a final site plan application will have to have all of the detail that this board needs to see in order for it to approve that final site plan.
Okay.
But on behalf, but for the board, on behalf of the committee that met with Mr. Garcia, okay, I'm just going to say the way I feel it should be said is that we're not going to go back and start picking this and nitpicking on anything, because the reason why we had this meeting, so we could get these details out for it. And again, the signage, basically, if you look at the Garwood Plaza sign, okay, that's basically the size that he would be putting up there. Okay, so you can get an idea.
Yeah, I'll right by.
Sure, here, you can get an idea of what it is.
I need a visual.
I understand. I understand.
But not just the size, the whole character of the sign, the base,
right,
plantings,
right,
not steel columns
going
right
up. Right.
But as Mr. Garcia said, his envision was a little bit different. It's going to be more of a scroll top than a square.
Yeah, the square top to it. So,
a little more imaginative and creative.
And Mr. Garcia, please, if we're saying something wrong, please have your, yeah, that would be. Up here. But that's what I remember from our meeting. And again, this is something, but I just want the board to know that when it does, if and when it does come to the final, okay, we're not going to nitpick on it because we agreed to what we had on this thing here because that's what we thought would be the best for that area. No, I don't mean it that way. You're taking it the wrong way. I'm just trying to say is that when we had a discussion, that's what the committee was for, and it's where that's. But you'll see a drawing of it, yes.
And if the drawing is not in line with what you believe the aesthetics were and as being represented, then that's a further discussion that can be had later on down the road on the final site plan approval.
Right. If it doesn't meet it, then we discuss it. Right. Okay, but if it meets it, then we'll go with that. If there's nothing else,
I have a question regarding the removal of the canopy. Was there ever any discussion about adding an awning or some other sort of canopy, not a triangular shape?
No, there was. It's just going to be the way. It's going to be a rectangular building.
Yes.
Nothing's going to be there. It'll just be a rectangle. That V will be out there.
We had talked about removing the triangle, the overhead canopy, to remove, take away some of that commercial, so it softens up the look of the Plaza in general. Look at it over here, you can see the triangle a little better.
Right. So it'll just be a rectangle.
Mr. Chairman, because there was new testimony taken today, it would be appropriate in order to preserve the record to ask the audience if there's anyone who has any questions with regard to the testimony that they've heard today. I know that you had previously opened it up for general public comments. I don't know if the board is inclined to do that again with regard to the application, but certainly with regard to the testimony that's been heard tonight, it would be appropriate if anyone has any questions of either the planner or Mr. Garcia, or the board for that matter, with regard to the subcommittee meeting, it would be appropriate to open up for those purposes.
And with that said, as we've done in the past, we'll open for public comments on either the questioning of Mr. Garcia, the new testimony with the planner, or any other comments you might have with that. At this time, I'll accept a motion to open the public portion.
I make a motion to open the public portion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. At this time, anyone wishing to speak, please come, state your name and address, please. Anthony, let's see. How are we going to work this? I don't want Mr. Garcia or his attorney to have to.
Before you clear Anthony out,
yes.
Since we have members of the public, are there any members of the public who actually do want to speak tonight? No.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I can move the mic there over, put that mic on if you wish.
We can do that if you could. Oh, thank you. Anthony, you're good there. We're just going to plug that in. It's a stand-up, which is something good.
Thank you. Saul Kirsten, 150 Berwyn Street. I just have a question regarding the sign height. When Mr. Garcia was asked, he actually didn't give a height. So if it turns out to be just presumption, it turns out to be 31 feet.
It won't happen. Because he's asking his variance is asking for a 30-foot sign. So that's what he's asking.
Just want to make sure that when the,
right.
Because the board had said they would agree to, because you stated you would agree to whatever that height was.
Maybe I might
perhaps in the record say as long as it's below 30 feet.
I will say that. I think it's less than 30 feet.
Okay.
But for the record then, I'll state that if the Garwood Plaza sign is over 30 feet, Mr. Garcia has asked for a variance of 30 feet, cannot go over 30 feet.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Chris Whiteside, 12 East. Roselle Avenue, sorry. The only question I have, first of all, I think as a resident, I'm encouraged that the site is going to be developed. And, but the concern that the question I have is the site going to be used for automotive repair, or is it just a retail?
No, it's just retail.
Okay. The second part of that is that, when I was a young man, I used to do my oil changes in front of whatever auto shop that was around. And in some cases, the oil might get dumped when no one's looking. I know some of those AutoZones have signs. Have we done anything or thought through the process to protect the environment so that in the event that AutoZone is no longer there, that we don't have a site that needs to be remediated or cleaned up in any fashion?
I guess I should answer that question. The circumstances are this. This board, if it does approve the application, will be putting on reasonable conditions on the approval of the application. I am assuming, although you know what happens when you assume, but I will assume, certainly based upon your comment, based upon some of the concerns that were previously raised by members of this board and members of the public, and one of those conditions is going to be that Mr. Garcia, as the owner of the property, is going to agree that there is a restriction on the property, that there is going to be no automotive repairs allowed, permitted on the site, anywhere on the site, and that he's going to allow the municipality to enforce that restriction, and if necessary, the police to come on site to enforce that restriction. So there are things that the board will be able to do to protect the residents against that condition.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else? One second, Bob.
Jacob McGarrett, 612 Sheridan Avenue, Roselle Park. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, viewing audience, members of the board, Mr. President Harms, good evening.
Good evening.
Please speak into the microphones. My hearing aids are not attuned to this system, this frequency. I think the attorney needs to write a letter to our borough clerk and get one for the municipal land use board meeting to somebody who has a senior citizen as I, who have a handicap. I don't hear too good. That comes with age. The residents and taxpayers are saying enough is enough. Put something where Sullivan Chevrolet is 4 years is too damn long. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, I'll accept the motion to close this public portion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Andrew, before the board enters into the discussion, do you want to sum up the application at all?
Yeah, I'm going to waive the summation. Everybody's very familiar with this site. We've gone over all the details. The applicant has cooperated with the select committee. I don't think there's anything more that I need to say or will add to this application.
Mr. Chairman, if I may go through a couple of my notes, some pertinent things that I'd like to share with the board through my review of my notes. The board has heard testimony with regard to this. As I indicated during my earlier remarks, originally it was for preliminary, final, and subdivision approval, and 2 of those requests have been withdrawn, that being the final and the subdivision requests. The board has heard the testimony from the applicant indicating that he is seeking approval for 4 separate commercial buildings on this site, along with the variances, and the subcommittee was appointed relative to dealing with the signage variances as well as the additional landscaping issues. Of note, there are 179 parking spaces that are currently proposed, 167 appear to be required. The issue that I have with regard to that, and I understand that we're talking about retail uses here, is that you don't know who all the tenants are going to be. You do know that AutoZone is the primary tenant, so you can you know what kind of parking they're going to require. And it has been designed solely for retail, but during the course of the discussions, it became clear that with the exception of AutoZone, there are no other proposed tenants for the property. So the uses may vary slightly. You may be looking at a situation in the future after approving this preliminary that a different type of use winds up being proposed for one of the buildings, such as an office use that would have a different park requirement or something along those lines. So I want the board to be aware of that as it goes through its deliberations here. There was the testimony of an engineer with regard to the engineering on the site. There was a testimony of a planner with regard to the planning aspects, and we heard the planner again tonight. There was no traffic expert that was brought forward. There was some representations that were made with regard to NJDOT needing to approve the driveways. There was some discussion as to the traffic signal itself and the coordination of the traffic signal with regard to the driveway. Those are all items that are certainly something that needs to be addressed and looked at, something that the applicant, should he obtain the preliminary approval, will be able to move forward with NJDOT to move forward on that permitting. But there is nothing that has been put before the board with regard to specifics of whether or not DOT will do that, what type of trips are expected to be generated, and the like, those things that we would expect to hear from a traffic expert. The flow of the property is something that I think is something that the board should look at when making its determination. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, I have no other comments with regard to it. I do want to indicate that there was also the testimony of the architect who drew the plans as well, so the board can, and certainly during the course of your deliberations and discussion, if any members want to bring up any of those specifics during the discussion, I would certainly appreciate it because it makes my life a lot easier when preparing a resolution for the board to put the comments on the record so that I can incorporate them into the resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have discussion on the board. I'll begin. As I said before, we had a great meeting with Mr. Garcia on the signage, landscaping, and the law. The only thing I'm not liking is the site plan itself. And being that we're putting up, I guess, 3 buildings, because there's an existing building now, the flow of, I'll call it pedestrians, going from building to building, as Councilor said, we don't know at this time right now what is going to be in the other 3 buildings. I mean, I know it says on the plans here, it might be this, it might be that, and everything else, but we don't really know what it is until the final plan comes down when we have something going in there. That's one reason why I don't like the site plan itself, with the buildings being separated. The other is any of the materials going into any one particular building. Again, we're not knowing what's going in these other ones. I mean, it could be a bank, it could be a gym, as we're stating here, but then it could not be. Of how the flow would be for deliveries coming in there. So if I just look at the one in front of me now, the picture here with the AutoZone, it doesn't show me where the drop-off point was going to be, in the front or back. And this one over here, Mr. Garcia, the one with the red car in it. I mean, I'm looking at that. I didn't really look at it. I'm just taking it from that right there.
For delivery?
Yeah, the delivery.
Yeah, it was stated on the engineer plan, but it was in the rear.
It was in the rear?
Yeah.
Okay. But and with that one there, right, because that's actually what we're asking, what would be granting is the in there. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just looking at the whole thing, not knowing what's in there, just the pedestrian, the health and safety of the pedestrians going from building to building. And in case there would be the auto zone, and then you'd have the other building, and then you'd have the gym if that's what it became, or it might be an office building. And then you have a bank if that's what it comes, or it might be something else. So I'm not liking it. I would think that more of a, I'm trying to think of what it would be, is more of a continuation of, if you had, you're building, and it would be one flow going, like a sidewalk that you have down there. So if AutoZone turned and the other building went over and all, and then some of the examples that I would think about would be like over in Roselle, where they have their plaza type area where when a pedestrian or a customer is coming into any one of the stores that might be in there, or patron the facilities that might be there, that they would be on one sidewalk type thing and walking through. And the other one would be, as we mentioned before, the Garwood Plaza. We use the Garwood Plaza sign as something we would like to see in that area. So that's my concern, and that's why I don't like the site plan itself of the jumping around of the buildings and that type of thing. So, being preliminary, maybe we could think about doing something a little different in there, when it came down to a final. But that's my concern about the health and safety of people walking in there and going from building to building. Any other board member have anything to?
I more or less concur with what you said, Mr. Chairman. I would like to see more of a continuum too. That would give us a consistent look. I mean, if somebody else comes in there and say it's a shoe store on the end, they want a different look than AutoZone has. Somebody in the middle wants a different look than either one of those have, and then we start to have a hodgepodge as opposed to a continuum of neat-looking stores. The one in Roselle, okay? Again, it has a continuum. You have some coming out, some going back, an inconsistent, fascia, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Not to me, I think it gives a better utilization of the property. From a town point of view, probably a better return on the investment that we've made.
I agree. I know Mr. Garcia in the first testimony stated that all the buildings would look, the facade would be all the same, which I think the board members would, appreciated that particular aspect of it. But what you're saying is that, it's jumping around and all.
Look at some of the other properties that he's developed, and he's done it in kind of concert with what we've said here, that, a more consistent facade. It doesn't have to be the same level like an industrial building, but a high facade, a lower facade, bigger windows, smaller windows.
I've seen some of the work Mr. Garcia's company has done, and I can appreciate it. It's well done. So that's my concerns about it, and I stated it, and let's see where we go with that. So, board member have any?
Yes, if this current site plan is approved, does Mr. Garcia as a developer have the opportunities? We know that he has one tenant, that's in AutoZone. Does he have the opportunity between the preliminary and the final to modify the positioning of the building? So at least he can begin the project? I know that would have to come up to the board again.
The footprint that you see before you
Correct.
is the footprint that Mr. Garcia is currently proposing. So this is the plan, this is the site plan that the board is voting on. So you're voting on a three-structure site plan.
If we approve it now, but he decides in the future he has difficulty finding other tenants, or he decides to modify the structures themselves, or push them back and make it into a continuous.
You'd have to start the process all over again. At this point, again, it's up to the applicant and his attorney how they wish the board to proceed. Certainly, this being the first time that the board has met to discuss how it actually feels after hearing all the testimony and reviewing it, certainly the applicant can have an opportunity, should they so choose, to not necessarily withdraw, the application, but to redraw the site plan, and then maybe we would be looking at a preliminary and final at that time. It wouldn't necessarily put Mr. Garcia any further back in his overall construction of the project. I think that this board has shown to the applicant its desire to proceed in a reasonably quick fashion with regard to this. So certainly it is not uncommon that an application like this come in for preliminary and final all at the same time, especially since a lot of the engineering's already been taken care of and the sign's been discussed and things like that. So, you know, I would certainly leave that to the applicant and his attorney whether or not they wish the board to vote on this site plan or whether or not, based upon the comments received, they wish to rethink. And again, we don't know if there are any other comments by board members. I'm only answering your question.
Thank you.
Any other members?
I have a few comments or concerns. I'm in line with Lauren and now Nietzsche with the decision to have separate buildings. I'm going to assume at this point that the buildings were designed in the fashion that they were laid out in the fashion that they were laid out because there was a subdivision in place at some time. Again, that's just an assumption on my part. But it would be nice to see the buildings as a linear building that kind of change levels and could be multiple stories at some point, whether false or not, but brought up to the streetscape to basically address the street and invite the street instead of having all that parking so visible. So I'm kind of in line with these guys and the location of the buildings and how they're laid out.
Mr. Messina.
The other thing I'm a little concerned about was the first I've heard of the canopy being removed. I don't know if I necessarily like the canopy that was proposed initially, but I don't know if I necessarily like the idea of removing a canopy. A canopy does several things. It addresses an entrance. It addresses the coverage from the elements, the weather, protects people. Without protection there, and the floor is wet directly under that canopy, people walking in and out of that building or any other use could be problematic for you, the property owner, or for the tenant. So that's something to think about. The other thing I'm a little concerned about is there was a lot of talk about what the signs are and what the landscaping may be or may not be. I also find that a little difficult to vote on as a variance without having more information. At this point, there's no use issue, so I don't really have a problem with the use, but those are the things that really come to mind at this time.
Anybody else? Yeah, I guess you know, to follow on here with the continuation. I guess first of all, you know, to follow up on Mr. Majera's comments there. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a tax-paying resident here like everyone else, and I definitely want to see something there, and I think we could probably get something done. But I also remember something that I thought about speaking with my family about it is we get one shot at this. We got to make sure that what we're going to do is going to be something that everyone's going to be happy with. I'm not totally against this setup here, but I do think, as you see in a lot of these projects going up where it is the one continuous, in my opinion, it is more attractive. And again, you know, as I'm thinking it through, you know, we definitely want to make sure we get it right because we have one chance at it. Once it goes up, that's what's going to be there, and that's what the legacy is going to be. So, just my concerns. I think the board is, you know, comments are all in the same area. Just I think it would be better. So I guess at this point,
what we do at this point is we look at Mr. Garcia, Mr. Angel, and we ask them straight up, do you want the board to vote on the application tonight, or do you want to have another opportunity to present a different plan?
We'd like this application voted upon as it stands.
Okay. If there's no other comments, what I'd ask for is a motion to accept or reject the application.
Well, I move that we reject the application as presented.
I'll second.
All right, just for the record, that was Mitchie. Motion. And the second was?
Check.
Okay, so, any other comments on the board? All right, we have a motion, we have a second, no other discussion. A yes vote would be to reject it, a no vote would, of course.
I just want to clarify, okay? It's not necessarily a rejection, it's a denial of the preliminary site plan application.
Right, okay, thank you. I use the wrong word sometimes. So does that, the board understand that, what we're doing?
Yes.
We're denying the site plan as it stands right now.
Right. A vote in the affirmative is to turn down the preliminary site plan application.
Okay. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Call the roll.
Councilman Petrowski.
No.
Let me just clarify,
Okay.
that no vote is in favor of this site plan,
Yes.
Mr. Petrowski? Yes. Okay.
Lauren Harms.
Yes.
Mr. Nitschi.
Yes.
Len Costello.
No, he's not
Oh,
voting.
I'm so sorry. John Kennedy.
Yes.
Jay Urbana.
Yes.
Paul Belmonte.
Yes.
Jerry Vitale.
Yes.
Owen Underman.
No.
The motion to deny the application, yes.
Okay, the site plan application is, preliminary site plan is denied. Resolution will be prepared with Ellen for the next meeting.
Thank you. On the agenda. On the agenda, there's nothing else for the board. At this time, just to let you know that our next meeting is Monday, October 19th at 7 o'clock. I will have a motion to adjourn. Any motion?
We're going to keep all of the,
Do I have a second? All in favor? Have a good night. Take care.
after